The nation of Israel had just emerged from Egypt, freed from the tyranny of the Pharaoh, and Moses, with God's grace, opened the Red Sea to the Israelites, allowing them to cross before the Pharaoh's army could change its mind. From there, they would reach the Promised Land, but decided not to enter due to the giants in the land, leading to them walking on endlessly for 40 years, until finally returning. Finally, they were prepared to enter conflict with the Canaanites. The Canaanites first appeared around 3000 BC. The nation first flourished, but after they began doing unholy things, such as engender marriage and killing babies, they had to be taken down. But before the Canaanites, Jericho still existed. Jericho's first walls and civilization first appeared in what some historians believed is somewhere around 10,000 to 5,000 years ago. They were a whole lot ahead of their time, with the first records of walls around its founding. And to compare, walls were usually began to be built around 3000 BC, or when the Canaanites first appeared. But the city would never be inhabited for long. Usually a group of people would settle in the area due to its proximity to springs not so far away. Then they would disappear just randomly, leaving the city deserted and eroded. Then another group would come along and build atop the other civilization. Soon the Canaanites came to occupy the city, and by the time the nation of Israel had came to attack, the leader was simply known as Emperor Sabak, also known as the King of Jericho. Soon after the Israelites organized an army, Moses stepped down as leader of the Israelites, soon dying. Well, of course, God was the leader too, but yeah. Soon a new leader sprang up, also known as Joshua. Joshua needed to be known as the new Moses, so God asked him to do all the things Moses did. First, he sent spies into the Promised Land. But unlike last time, where they had to walk around for 40 years, they find a group of people who turned to God being their savior. These people are led by Rahab, a woman. But during this, the king, or emperor, however you want to say it, hears about this and these spies and sends troops to find them. When they arrive, Rahab hides them under their bed, where they stayed until the troops moved on. For converting to Christ and saving the spies, Rahab and her family would be spared. Soon, the nation of Israel crossed the Jordan River, with God parting the river like he did with Moses. Except instead of escaping, the Israelites were walking into a battle. God then asked Joshua to have 12 men pick up 12 rocks and move them to where they would make camp. These stones would become memorials of the nation of Israel. This crossing of the river, however, scared the city of Jericho. For them, an unknown force of about 4,000 soldiers crossed, and the river stopped them from stopped for their crossing. Not so long after this, the king ordered all inhabitants inside the city walls. The king of Jericho was not the only one scared, however, with kings all over the land fearing his force. The force took camp at Gilgal, east of Jericho. Here they would make weapons for upcoming battle with Jericho, but soon they would meet an unexpected soldier.
Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so.
After this encounter, the nation of Israel reached Jericho's walls. Then the Lord ordered the Ark of the Covenant to stand marching around the city, with trumpet blowers in the front of them and the soldiers of the army behind the Ark. Then they would march around the walls for 6 days. Then began the siege of Jericho. Every day, the army would completely march around the walls over and over again until dusk, where they rested On the seventh day, the army once again surrounded the city, except this time, before the trumpets blew, Joshua said this.
Shout! For the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. And all the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord, and must go into his treasury.
After saying this, the army shouted in unison with the trumpets. When they did this, the walls that had protected Jericho from other hostility fell apart. The walls came tumbling down. The soldiers ran into the city, killing men, women, and children alike. Only Rahab and her family lived. After this, the two spies originally sent into the area pulled Rahab and her family out of the city. Not so long after they were safe, the city of Jericho was razed and lit aflame. Jericho, one of the oldest cities, soon became ashes. Before the burning, however, they took all the silver and gold and put it in the Lord's treasury. After the burning, Joshua said,
Cursed before the Lord is the one who undertakes to rebuild the city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son he will lay the foundation. At the cost of his youngest he shall set up its gates.
Soon, the fear of Joshua spread across the Canaanite world. Joshua would spend most of his time fighting against the Canaanites, until finally dividing the land between the 12 tribes of Israel. Overall, the Battle of Jericho is often talked about for its meaning, showing that if you obey God, you can find your own promised land. But if you don't obey God, you will be punished. Now this has always been true, and certainly with the Battle of Ai. Over 36 Israelites died against the Canaanites in that battle, which is small, but compared to no casualties in the Battle of Jericho, it is certainly a scare. Heel, the Bethelite, would rebuild Jericho around 350 BC, and as the curse said, he lost his oldest child at the beginning of construction, and at the end, he was visiting the funeral of his youngest. And that what is the story of the Battle of Jericho. Thanks to Historical Events for letting me use his voice for all the Bible verses in this video. He has a lot of content on this channel like that, such as the Orange Order, the Reformation, Martin Luther and the Christmas Tree, the Annunciation, anything like that. Again, if you want Christian history, go to his channel.